I don't think it's a hot take to say that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best Mario Kart. You may have differences of opinion based on what your favorite Mario Kart is. Like, my favorite Mario Kart is Mario Kart DS by a pretty huge margin, but 8 Deluxe is just on a completely different level in terms of the way it was able to refine every single aspect of the franchise to a degree that it made it hard to figure out what could possibly come next. And the answer to what comes next after Mario Kart 8 Deluxe ended up just being more Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Over the past 7 years, the booster course added 46 new tracks and 10 new characters before support ended. This took an arguably perfect game and elevated it on a pedestal so far that it made it seem impossible to reach by any eventual successor. This was my feeling, at least as somebody who put literally hundreds of hours into Mario Kart 8 on the Nintendo Wii U in 2014, and then again put more hundreds of hours into it when it released as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Nintendo Switch. I cut my teeth over the years playing online as Waluigi with the standard bike, Azure, roller wheels, Wario Wing glider, drilling every single mechanic into my head. I optimized every drift, I mapped every shortcut, and I played relentlessly until the possibility space of Mario Kart 8 seemed subconscious. You know you've achieved some kind of Mario Kart enlightenment when the blue shell no longer phases you. But outside of the skill part, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is as much a social game as it is a racing game. As with every Mario Kart before it, playing with friends is the truest joy possible in all of gaming. The frustration of getting bodied by red shells over and over and over again is really only matched by the highs of just hanging out, man. Racing is just an opportunity to catch up, whether that be online or offline, like on the couch. It's rare for a game to straddle both sides of that line so effortlessly. Just look at the graveyard of recent Sony live service games if you want any indication of how hard it is. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a miracle in a lot of ways. So I think it's fair to say that I'm entering the Mario Kart World era with a fair bit of bias. And I don't mean bias in the way that console war reply guy freaks mean bias. I mean it in the sense that I think Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is one of the best games ever made, and making a sequel or a follow-up to that seems like an almost impossible task. Especially knowing how many huge swings they're taking with this entry, it seemed more than likely that it would be extremely ambitious, but stumble along the way. It would be admirable, but worse than Mario Kart 8. So did they pull it off, dear viewer? Did they manage to beat the best? No. Not really, if I'm being totally honest. But that doesn't stop Mario Kart World from being a monumental achievement, and the kind of game that will probably replace Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in terms of being the game that my friends and I will hop onto if we want to just hang out on voice chat for a while. Beyond that, given some of the frankly terrifying videos I've seen on TikTok of the extremely high skill ceiling, it seems like the kind of game that's kind of activating the neurons in my head that make me want to just pursue perfection again. I want the movement of Mario Kart World to become second nature. The first major change to Mario Kart World is present in the name of the game itself. It's the world. It's open. That means every one of the game's 30 tracks is connected by a system of roads and highways which are explorable in an included free roam mode that's accessible at any time from the main menu just by pressing the plus button. It's kind of a nice touch. When you press it, it just fades the menu UI away, and then you're just in free roam immediately. The open world design bleeds into every single aspect of the game, in some cases enhancing the classic gameplay of Mario Kart, and in just as many cases taking swings that come frighteningly close to whiffing entirely. It starts with the immediately obvious changes like having 24 racers instead of the 12 present in Mario Kart 8's races, which then bubbles out into the more subtle but equally impactful changes like a general widening of the tracks across the board. You have a lot more room to maneuver as an individual, but also a lot more room to slam up against the 24 other racers who are also battling for supremacy at the same time. Mario Kart has always felt Mad Max adjacent, but never so much as in this game when you're in that middle 15 racers, just all with their own items trying to make it into that top 5 where it's a little bit more chill. Not much more chill, but a little bit more chill. The connected world design really changes how Grand Prix mode works for the first time in eons. Each cup still contains 4 races, but they're spaced out in a really bizarre way. The first race consists of 3 laps on a standard track as per usual, but the next races all require you to drive from the end of that first track to the next track, with that commute counting as 2 of the 3 laps. 1 lap at that destination track then finishes that race before you go on and do that 2 more times. It's a strange decision made purely to show off how open the world is, but because you're only doing 1 lap at 3 of the 4 tracks in every cup, those 3 tracks end up not feeling very memorable unless they're like really in your face about how cool they are. The bizarre thing is that the tracks are incredible when played individually, but because of the way they're structured in Grand Prix, it feels like you're spending more time in the connective tissue between tracks than in the main event. On the flip side, it's the newly added Knockout Tour mode where this openness really, really shines. In fact, it shines so much that it makes me wonder if this was actually supposed to be the main mode of Mario Kart World and Grand Prix was added later in development as like I guess we should include that. Over the course of 6 laps across 6 interconnected tracks, 24 racers vie to prevent elimination from lap to lap. 24, 20, 16, 12, 8, then 4 players cross the titular world in the most horrifying, edge-of-your-seat gameplay since the introduction of Battle Mode on the N64. Knockout Mode is spectacular, and I think honestly could have replaced Grand Prix entirely. As an adaptation of Battle Royale-style gameplay to arcade racing, it single-handedly justifies the entire concept of a sequel to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's just that good, folks. That said, opinions of the actual free roam mode seem to be hotly debated online, with some people saying it's boring and too empty, and other people saying all they do is drive around and try to find one of the hundreds of P-switches, each of which contains a challenge that varies wildly in difficulty, from extremely easy, just drive around this track, to do some like unbelievable Tony Hawk tricks, which we'll talk about that later. There are 334 of these P-switch challenges hidden around Mario Kart World's map, which would probably be enough for a very specific kind of player, I think, a very self-motivated kind of player. And yet, in addition to the P-switch challenges, you'll also find, or maybe not find, one of the 138 Peach medallions, which are also hidden all around the map. Peach medallions are these giant floating coins placed in kind of precarious or hidden locations around the map. Like the P-switches, acquiring these medallions is a test of skill, although a little bit less directed. They require a very specific blend of curiosity and motivation to both find and then collect, with each demanding out-of-the-box thinking from an either discovery or mechanic know-how perspective. Or both. Sometimes it's both. Again, these 2 collectibles will really only apply to certain players with certain kinds of motivations, and that may or may not be you, dear viewer. Personally, I find free roam to be pretty fun as like a vibe simulator. It's just fun to drive around. Like a Nintendo-coded rendition of everything great about the Forza Horizon series, free roam mode allows me to just like take a beat from the sweaty nature of online multiplayer and just drive around, relax, collect some Peach medallions here and there, and listen to one of the hundreds of songs composed for this game's really remarkable score. And as an aside, I saw somebody online say that Mario Kart World is just a soundtrack with a video game as the soundtrack's bonus features, which, you know, that sounds dismissive, but I think in some ways really just highlights how incredible the soundtrack really is. All of that said, if none of the above really appeals to you, you'll probably end up in the free roam is boring camp, and that's a bummer for you. I'm sorry to hear that. What I will say is that the game isn't worse for including it. I imagine a few years into Mario Kart World being the go-to for hanging out online with your buds, we'll all be happy about its inclusion. Already in my brief sessions playing online with friends, we've forgotten multiple times to actually like select races and do like a knockout tour or something, because just driving around in free roam with your friends is honestly fun enough. I think it's a mode that will get better with time. Put a pin in that concept. Okay, to pivot for a second, I'm having a hard time to decide what I think about this game mechanically. It's definitely too early to judge for real, and it feels unfair to compare my hundreds of hours across every other Mario Kart game with this game within its first month. That said, there are some huge changes that are actually literally game-changing. The first 2 involve grinding on rails and wall riding, each of which expand the possibility space dramatically. Add to these the ability to charge a standard jump to better achieve these grinds and wall rides, and you have a skill ceiling that feels astronomically high compared to previous entries in the series. You'll be begging for snaking to make a return when you see somebody jump off the side of your screen, disappear until the end of the race, but somehow win before you ever see them again. As a TikTok comment on a time trial video I saw earlier this week said, "Is driving on the roads no longer the meta in Mario Kart?" That's the kind of question that's going to keep me up at night. Like I said, I don't know where I land here. Watching speedrunners perfect this game system so quickly really reminds me of like when a good, fun first-person shooter comes out and me and all my friends jump in and we have a really good time, and then a week later, everyone we're playing against is so good that the game is not fun. So frequently, players will hit 90% of a game's skill ceiling within the first month, and then spend the next decade trying to close the gap of that last 10%. And I'm like decently good at Mario Kart. And I mean good in like I can beat a lot of my friends at Super Smash Brothers, but you're not about to find me at a tournament studying frame data kind of good, if you know what I mean by that. In the case of Mario Kart World, I may try to spend some time getting good again, but I don't know if I'll ever get posting clips on TikTok good. That gap between me and the TikTok crowd is at least wide enough that I still see a lot of room to grow and improve. And just like learning the language of a roguelike over repeated runs and invested time, I foresee a lot of play hours spent drilling some of these concepts into my head. Honestly though, only time will really tell. I find it's helpful to think of Mario Kart 8 as 3 different video games. There's the one that launched on the Wii U in 2014, there's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, launching on the Nintendo Switch in 2017, and the version of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that we have now, after the booster course and all the patches. In that way, I think it's also probably helpful to remember that this is the worst that Mario Kart World will ever be, which honestly makes it the perfect Nintendo Switch 2 launch title. The Switch 2 is an interesting beast in that it's exactly what everybody expected it to be. Full stop. In the long history of Nintendo throwing curveballs and marching to the beat of its own drum, doing what everyone expects is their version of a 4D chess move. It's that scene from The Princess Bride with the poison goblets and the mind-losing forum posting Nintendo fans, and people like me, if I'm being honest, are all Wallace Shawn. The Nintendo Switch 2 is a bit bigger and a bit heavier than its predecessor, which immediately makes it less comfortable to hold in handheld mode. I had 2 wishes for the next Switch. One of them was more themes beyond just light mode and dark mode, and the other was ergonomic Joy-Cons. The flat back is just so flat. But these are nitpicks more than anything. I can live without themes as it only makes my nostalgia for the years of era-defining music for each channel of the Nintendo Wii more powerful. And the Joy-Con ergonomics were easily fixed by a $4 pair of grips I bought on a whim from a department store in Akihabara. I also have the kill switch from D-Brand getting delivered, I think, like next month or something, so that should help a lot. The true story of the Nintendo Switch 2 is that pretty much everything is improved across the board. Games output to 4K when docked, the console supports HDR, there's built-in voice chat so we don't need to use the app anymore, and by use the app I just mean use Discord like everybody else. The Joy-Con now attach magnetically and feel significantly sturdier, which is really great because my OLED Switch had this issue where sometimes I'd be playing in handheld mode and the Joy-Cons would like slip out of the rail and then they would just disconnect and I need to put them back in and then I'd need to press a button and then I could keep playing. It would happen like over and over and over again every single time I played anything. It was so annoying. I ended up just like jamming some tape in there. Ill-advised, but I don't know, it worked. Games load faster when booting up. The eShop actually works this time, even if it's still filled with AI slop for some reason. And some games are receiving unadvertised performance improvements literally just because you're playing them on better hardware than before. That's pretty cool. The most complimentary thing I think I can say about the Nintendo Switch 2 is just the immediacy at which it settled into my life. I booted the thing up, started downloading my games, and within an hour, I was literally off to the races in Mario Kart World. Every day since then, I've gotten out of bed, spent my day wandering around Tokyo, and then came back to either do a few laps in Mario Kart World, or play Fantasy Life I, or 100 Line before going to bed. And just like Mario Kart World, this is the worst the Switch 2 will ever be. And it's already pretty great. One thing I haven't mentioned is the way you unlock characters and costumes, which is both really fun and really confusing in equal measure. Costumes are unlocked by visiting Yoshi's drive-thru locations and picking up fast food around the map, which give a speed boost and also occasionally transform your character's outfit at random based on the food you acquire. Characters are unlocked either by completing one of the Grand Prix Cups, and there's one character for each Grand Prix Cup, or by getting transformed into a new character by Kamek, who appears as an item this time around. Kamek transforms every racer in front of the user into a random character, and the jury is out if where this happens is directly tied to which character you unlock. Personally, I think this rocks, but I've seen a lot of people online complain about the idea of needing to unlock characters and outfits based purely on RNG. And that all comes back to the expectation that we'll be playing this game for the next 5 to 10 years. It wouldn't be fun to experience 100% of what Mario Kart World has to offer within its first week, and be real, people would be complaining much louder about that if that were true. Having some characters and costumes just out of reach gives players a reason to come back, and look, it's always better than the alternative, which is just buy this stuff on the eShop. The characters and costumes are amazing, though. As somebody who generally mained Waluigi in Mario Kart 8, I can't speak highly enough of the Dracula costume called Vampire that you can unlock for him. But really, it's the weirder and smaller Mario enemies who are playable as racers this time around who really steal the show. The amount of comedy to be found in watching Sidestepper the Crab ride a motorcycle is really only outdone by watching the cow from Moo Moo Meadows do anything. There's a reason the cow went viral. One lingering question I have about the game's future is how much DLC we'll end up getting and what Nintendo will primarily focus on. Costumes seem to be the most obvious at first because it sure is suspicious that the two leads of Donkey Kong Bonanza have the least amount of costumes, and that game seems to be pretty focused on unlocking costumes. But the main thing I wonder is how they'll be able to add tracks in the future, and if they'll add tracks in the future, because it's not like you could just take Waluigi Pinball and like drop it in. It needs to connect to everything else, and it needs to look like the rest of the world. But speaking of the tracks, they're immediately great. Whether it's reinventions of tracks from before, like the new version of Shy Guy Bazaar, which I think is spectacular, or some of the newcomers like Boo Cinema, which is like the standout, I think, of this game. They totally nailed it. There are a few downgrades here and there, like the newly Chargin' Chuck infested version of Choco Mountain definitely loses a lot of what made the original Choco Mountain interesting, but considering the ambition of making one huge interconnected world and needing to link all of these very different art styles and vibes together, you know, there were going to be a couple casualties along the way. And I think that's the key to my feeling about Mario Kart World right now. The ambition on display is palpable, and it's much more exciting to play a game that is taking swings this big than it would be to play something much safer. Nintendo could have made Mario Kart 9, and it could have included everything Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did, but with even more tracks and even more characters, and we all would have loved that. That would have been fine. Honestly, that's basically what the Switch 2 is compared to the original. But launching the Switch 2 with a game that's both interested in honoring the series' legacy while also pushing it further and expanding what Mario Kart means conceptually makes me optimistic about the next decade of what Nintendo has to offer. It's the most confident the company has ever been, and it shows in every aspect of this game, as much as it shows in decisions like let's have Donkey Kong take the spotlight instead of just making a new Mario. It's everything we loved about the weirdness of the GameCube era with this little dash of like, it's gonna work this time though. Mario Kart World is first at the starting line to show off Nintendo's commitment to only playing it safe when it makes sense, but also understanding that you need to take chances to stay in the lead. That could mean adding a second USB-C port to the top of the Switch for reasons I still believe have yet to be announced. Or that could mean letting me and my friends hop on voice chat and laugh so hard we cry while forgetting to race it all and just driving around the rainforest between the Great Question Mark Block ruins and Dino Dino Jungle. Mario Kart World is a very good video game and one I'm going to play a whole lot of. And that's it for this one. Hello from Tokyo, by the way. I've been in Japan for just about 2 months. I've been in Tokyo for just under a month. And it's been really cool. It's been really great. I've missed making videos, but it's been really nice to, you know, like get married and then take a break for a while. That said, thank you so much for watching this, as always and as usual. If you are subscribed to the channel, I really appreciate it. If not, maybe consider it. I'll be coming back with more stuff when I'm back stateside, but for now, I hope you enjoy playing Mario Kart World as much as I do. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.